I read every single comment. A recent comment was this: what assortment of hardware and screws would you keep on the truck as a residential, commercial, handyman, or contractor? What's the minimum viable collection that will allow you to do almost anything you encounter in the construction industry? Wow, what a question. We're going to take a swing at that, specifically at the screws that I carry now in 2 Milwaukee packouts that keep me out of trouble most of the time. So this is one of about 20 screws I've got back here, and I'll guarantee you, or at least I'm going to assume, that not all of you have not all of these. But I'll tell you what, there have been days that I wished I would have had all of these, but let's start with the lowly drywall screw. 1¼ inch fine thread, 1 5/8 inch coarse thread. Now, I'm open to your input. Please tell me, the only advantage that I can see to a fine thread drywall screw is it has to turn more times to travel a distance so you can flush it. If you're not using an automatic set device on a drill motor, you can get the nice, snug, dimpled finish on the paper. The coarse threads go in right now, and I think they are suitable for rock-to-rock applications. When you're screwing through rock into rock, this gives you a chance of holding on. Tell me which one you prefer and why. But 1¼ inch, 1 5/8 inch, 1/2 inch drywall, 5/8 drywall overhead. Let me show you why drywall screws are only good for drywall. Broke off the head. Broke off the head. They will not hold well enough to keep you alive, but they will hold well enough to hold the drywall up. So these two screws look the same, but they're not. This is a deck screw, this is a GRK. 3 inch, 2.5, but similar head shape, similar thread count, similar diameter. But don't use these interchangeably unless you got no choice. I'm going to set the GRK down and just talk about deck screws as a category. 1.5 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch. They are sort of cost effective. You can buy them in big buckets and screw down decks, whether it's, composite or a wood deck. They have different features on to push the mushroom that comes up in composite back down. They've got little teeth on the bottom of the bugle head to sort of sand off and countersink the head in a little bit. But they will break, but they don't cost much. So one of the things that makes these deck screws specialized for decks is they've got a cutting edge. They've got a blade ground right into the tip, so it will cut through the wood in the top, in the 2x6 or the 1x6 or the Trex or whatever you're drilling through. It will tend to cut its way in and then pull itself in with the threads. That's an improvement if you're trying not to split. A more generic multi-purpose screw like this beautiful thing doesn't have to have that because it's not always a plus. These 3 screws introduce the category of trim head screws. These 2 are GRK. There's a 2.5 inch, I think, trim head and an 1.5 inch trim head. Yeah, I think that's what that is. Depending on the thickness of the hardwood molding you're trying to attach. It should be hardwood because you don't have a large screw head, so the wood needs to have some strength. This is for composite decking. It'll countersink, it will flush, it becomes invisible. But this is a little bitty Torx, and this is some sort of a funky modified plus shape Phillips Robertson hybrid. I don't have the tip anymore. Tell me what it is, and tell me what is your favorite tip for construction screws generally. So before I jump forward into the bigger, more specialized oddball screws that you need to have around, you ought to have a few stainless screws. Now this is 1.5 inch. That'll hold a fence board up. That'll hold some siding. That will, if you really don't need a rust stain, if it's exterior or if you're matching a stainless look inside somewhere, you ought to keep a few stainless screws. These are in Torx. These are not quite an oval head. It's a deck screw in every way except stainless as a specialty. GRK again, although these come in other brands, a cabinet type screw. It's a screw head that essentially has the washer built in, a little bit of a countersink. It's sort of a bugle head with a washer permanently installed. It is underrated. The holding power is awesome. They come out of your bags ready to go, and when they come tight, they come tight. So these are the last of what I would say you could think of as wood screws. And they're ranging from 3.5 inches to probably 8 inches, and there's GRK and there's Simpson for holding down trusses, and I don't know if this is a Headlock or what brand that is, but it's got a hex head, so you can really pull down. Each one is going to be for a different ideal application, but you ought to have a few of them because that's one of the realities of home renovation and handyman work and contracting, particularly if you're a generalist. You never know what you're going to confront when you get there. But this might be my desert island screw, and I'd be interested in what yours would be, the one screw that you would have to get you out of a bind most often. This is a 3.5 inch GRK, I don't know, is that 3/16? What size do they call these? 5/16 by 6. This must be a 5/16 by 3.5. Buddy, this will hold something. And so will this. So here's the same concept, a little shorter. Slip up here, bite down there, hex head if you need it. And this is specifically for trusses. You've seen me install those. These are an improvement in many cases over the little Simpson hardware things. You can run up from the bottom. You can start in. That's going to hold the whole world all the way in. So these are all for fastening essentially to wood, right? These two are for fastening to concrete. Both of these are made by Tapcon. This is a 1/4 inch diameter call out with a hex head. This is a 3/16 call out, I think 3 inches long, Torx head. The trick, well, there's a couple tricks on Tapcons, but the first trick is that the pilot hole you drill is a little bit undersized from the call out on the screw. The 1/4 inch screw calls out for a 3/16 inch diameter pilot. This is a 3/16 screw, I think, and it calls out for a 5/32 pilot, I think. Verify that on the packaging. But the point is, it'll run into wood as if it was a wood screw, and it'll run into concrete as if it is a completely different animal. Watch this. It'll do the same thing in concrete. So there's a couple more tricks with Tapcons. You've got to clean out the hole. It doesn't hurt to sort of ream it just a little bit with that bit, and then try the screw, and if it is just too tight, ream it a little bit more, because these things are tough, but they will break. And when you get right to the end of your penetration, back off a little bit, because yeah, if they break off in the concrete, that's where they stay. Okay, let's wrap this up. I, and probably almost everybody that plays with screws and opens packagings and fastens things up, ends up with a lot of oddball screws. And it never hurts to have one of these pockets or a bag or a bucket or a cup full of miscellaneous screws, because you can paw through there and sometimes save the day. But I usually keep a couple of the switch plate screws in ivory and white for fastening switch plate covers or, outlet covers to the boxes in the different lengths. I'll keep some metal roofing screws, just a few, because even if it's not a metal roofing job, sometimes these things will keep you out of a jam. So in the broad general category of having most of what you need, I set aside a little space for a Heinz 57 collection of drill bits and screw tips and magnetic tip holders and, countersinking screw hole drills. Those things are tricky. This is not a whole set. I have a whole set. But at least I have, and for centering up a screw hole in the holes in a hinge or a strike plate, that might not be the right one, but it might be if the whole set's in the truck. Or maybe I just have to drill a hole through some tile in a bathroom. And so I have a head nod towards everything, knowing that you can never anticipate every problem. I mean, every plan is great until the first engagement, right? The fog of war changes every plan. But if you've got most of the ammunition that you think is going to actually keep you working or fighting or showing up, sometimes that's the best you can do. And my friends, that's all they can ask, is that we do the best that we can do. Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.